right, the quick strips have been on for 1 week on Hive Left. Today I'm going to go in, take out the strips, we're going to condense the boxes down to 2 boxes, and we're going to check the mite kill. On the last video I showed you a clip of 24 hours after the strips went in, and this is now 7 full days. Glad I got the strips on. Pretty amazing. Hello bees. The quick strips are coming out today. All right, let's get this box off and get the quick strips out of there. There's a lot of Varroa all dead around here. Condensing boxes. Any empty frames are just going to come out right now. Just want to see if there's any brood down here at all. And this I just want to like take out of the hive. That is just junk. There's our pollen from last week. Lots of pollen. This frame doesn't look that bad. It is an old frame, but it doesn't look that bad. Pollen. All right, there's a lot of pollen in here. Tons of pollen. What goes next to pollen? How about some brood? All right, that's a gorgeous frame of honey right there. Solid frame of honey. That's a nice outside frame. Looking for some brood. Any brood at all. All right, this frame is dead brood, and it's a bunch of junk. It's a good frame to get rid of. That's a junk frame. Ooh, there's eggs in here. Okay, we got some eggs. We got a queen. All right, she's going down in the bottom box. Queen is going center bottom box with eggs. There she is. Okay, now we know where our queen is. So we got empty frames down here, drawn frames. Taking this thing out of here. This is a much better looking frame to go next to the queen. That was the frame that was next to the queen. And that is a frame that has tons of pollen. So I'm going to put that here. We got a heavy honey frame on the outside. We got pollen here. We got a pollen with a little bit of nectar here, but empty space. Queen is here, empty, empty. And then we have more honey over here. Bottom box is done. That is a brood box. Now we got to make up a honey box on top. All right, this is going to be as much honey as I can find. Okay, there's their outside frame. Good, solid nectar frame right there. Whoa, that's a white-faced hornet. You need to get out of there. That is a heavy frame right there. All right, this hive is condensed. I got all the best honey frames at the top. I have this feeling that that robbing is actually my own bees because my Italians are going nuts over here. Closing up the Russians. I'm gonna give them syrup. All right, this is free lunch. This is Italian Balboa hive, and they are very active, and I think they're the ones that are now robbing the Russian hive. But the Russian hive is now secure. There aren't any Italians going into the hive. Everything's sealed up, but they are all over the frames I just removed. So there's a couple frames that have a fair amount of nectar and honey. This is a pretty full frame here that came out of the Russian hive. But I left them with quite a bit of honey in the hive. A couple of frames of brood in the bottom. There are several frames in there. Their honey was distributed all throughout the hive. So hopefully they can take some of this back. The Italians are definitely more active on these frames, but I think once the Russians figure out what's going on, they're going to get right out to it. Here's a white-faced hornet. Those things are badass. You don't want to mess with them. And this is the nuke comb. The stuff that came in the nuke. The trash. So that is never going to go back into a hive right there. This is stuff they drew out this year. So this right here is the redistribution of wealth in the apiary, evening out the stores. So a little robbing station here for all my frames. I want to just keep them out of the weather. It's supposed to rain later. So the bees can go right under there and rob out what they want, bring it back to their hives. We've got the Russians, the Italians. I think that far Russian too is at this. A lot of bees out. All right, once again, thank you, Mite Away Quick Strips. Great success. There was definitely like a couple thousand dead mites on the mite board. The queen was fine. The bees all seem fine. Not a lot of dead bees in there. So the Mite Away Quick Strips is definitely the nuclear option for killing Varroa. You put them in the hive. It's quick 7 days. It goes in there, boom, just all the Varroa are gonna die. And they fall to the mite board, and then the bees are free of Varroa. So queen was alive, no troubles, ventilation was good, and everything was a success. I removed 8 frames out of the hive. Some of those frames were virtually empty. There were a few that had a lot of honey and some stores on them, but I put those out for open robbing, for the bees to go get what they can. I removed the equivalent of probably 3 or 4 honey frames out of the Russian hive. They do have a full box that is pretty much filled with honey and nectar. Then there are a lot of empty frames in the bottom, and the queen was laying eggs. There were fresh eggs down there. So the hive is alive. I don't think they're as bad as everyone was saying they were last week in the last video. With syrup on the hive, with less space to worry about, I've reduced the entrances so they're not gonna get robbed, from the front door. I think they're gonna be all right. And with the queen now laying eggs, they still have several weeks before we really get to the cold weather. So they have one more brood cycle in there. If she keeps laying this week, they're gonna have a lot of new bees in there. So I'm not sure if leaving these frames out in the open was the proper thing to do. It seemed like okay, I guess. If you have a better suggestion for how I could have done this, please leave your notes in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.